Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back everybody for another YouTube video. This is going to be our daily cryptocurrency market update video. We're going to be diving into Bitcoin really to kick things off. Yesterday was an extremely turbulent day for the markets, especially the FX market, given what Liz Truss is essentially proposing. The pound saw a huge spill to the downside. This, of course, propelled the dollar. We had stocks selling off left, right, and center. I think we had, I believe, one of the worst days for the Dow in a long time. Dow drops nearly 500 points to close at new lows for 2022. So we had a new low for this year for the Dow yesterday. We saw the dollar absolutely skyrocket. This is a weekly candle, by the way, guys. And this is going to become relevant because for me, trying to trade this, or trying to trade crypto when the dollar's doing this, it makes things a little bit harder, certainly given the fact that we have some extremely significant resistance coming up for the dollar. You know, do we get that soft dollar? It was an extremely bad day for markets, is essentially what I'm trying to say here. And Bitcoin and crypto actually did very, very well, in my opinion. Well enough for me to close shorts. Now, I know what you're going to say. It was 3.5 down or whatever it was. I can't remember what it closed the day at, but it certainly clawed a lot of that back. And the reason it did well was if you look at it in comparison with the stock market had a terrible, terrible day. But when the stock market usually sells off in this proportion, Bitcoin usually exceeds it. It sells off significantly more. Also, the FTSE got killed, which is the UK stock market. We did say expect some sort of resistance here and support here yesterday when we looked at it. Gold got killed. Your commodities got killed, oil got killed, and the dollar did this. Just to remind everyone, the correlation between Bitcoin and the dollar is very, very evident. When the dollar goes up, Bitcoin goes down. So the dollar doing this, Bitcoin didn't really move off of that in the kind of proportion that you'd think it would. So that makes me nervous from a short perspective in regards to day trading. Don't want to short that sort of strength. Now, we said we didn't really understand this the day before. We said there was something essentially up with this rally. We will get into the news in just a sec, guys, because there's a lot going on. But essentially, you know, we did say, and we have looked at this support and said it has to be respected. The last time we were down here, we called for the short squeeze that we got. It took us all the way back up to 22K. Also, we are looking and still very much looking at this beautifully drawn head and shoulders. I do think you're on the neckline here. You need to break this. You have broken it. Is this the retest before you then get the continuation to the downside? Potentially, and I do think this head and shoulders at this point looks very, very likely to play out. Not just because it's technically there, but because I actually think that, you know, it's a seller's market and we are putting in lower prices. So this kind of fits in with that narrative. Do we get that double peak, though, is really the question now. Lots of sort of technical analysis or market technicians would essentially say you need symmetry in your shoulders. So maybe we get some sort of and this is why I'm saying and mention the dollar and not really wanting to trade when the dollar's like this. If we get some sort of a pullback, you'd expect some resistance here. Remember, the last time the dollar was at here, I believe, was 2002, if I'm not mistaken, 2001. So this is going to be really significant resistance or an area of interest, in my opinion. If the dollar pulls back, going into that area, and we see it rest for a period, it's not going to rest forever, and we'll talk about that in just a second, because there's every reason for the dollar to continue at this point. You know, we know that it's not just the dollar that's upping interest rates or the Fed, it's banks across the world, but they're doing it, they're catching up to the dollar, basically. So there's a number of reasons why the dollar's getting bid, safety being a big one. But there's also sort of a balance sheet reason that if people are looking to allocate capital, they're going to go where they're best served. And if the dollar has higher interest rates than the rest of the countries it's competing with, it's a no-brainer that they're going to move into the dollar. So there's every reason for the dollar to continue higher. But if you do get that sort of period, and we'll remove this now, of rest for the dollar, maybe we put in this double peak. But this price action, to me, it's not really worth trading until there's some sort of a break. We may look to position into tomorrow, but I think you're going to get quite a bit of chop today with a low volume. Maybe you put in a little bit of that second peak and then get that slam down, or we could just roll into Sunday. A couple of reasons why it might be showing strength. You know, maybe it's just stalling. We do often see a laggard between the tech sector and Bitcoin. Usually Bitcoin will follow after. Certainly we looked at that with the market sniper in the forms of the ARK ETF overlaid with the Bitcoin chart. So maybe it's stalling, or maybe, you know, that there's actual genuine strength here, and we are going to see that second peak, and we do get that sharp move to the upside and another short squeeze occur. I'm more probable that this is going to roll. I do think eventually it rolls whatever route it takes, but I've got to say that I saw huge amounts of, or impressive in my opinion, strength for Bitcoin yesterday. I believe we've got Bitcoin, and yeah, this is Bitcoin against the NASDAQ. So it did pretty well. I mean, it's not strong, and it's not sort of strength that we've seen against the dollar, but it still did pretty well. It didn't really lose much ground at all, whereas the NASDAQ had a pretty horrific day along with the S&P. We know that this is all on the back end of the Fed's meeting. It's why the dollar's been so strong. The dollar was also extremely strong going into a little bit of the news. We have a new prime minister in the UK. Britain's sudden lurch to Reaganomics gets a thumbs down from the market. So the sterling, basically we had a lot of new policy proposed, and the sterling really fell off the cliff hard as a result of this, to the point where even the Bank of England is weighing up an emergency rate hike as the UK is running out of options to bolster the GBP. So again, talking about what I was saying, why the dollar's going to catch a bid is because it serves people best. Well, that's because the interest it's going to pay. So your other central banks have to sort of try and match that now. That's all taking liquidity off the table for markets. So even if we do see that rest for the dollar, you know, we've still got that sort of liquidity draining really ramping up at this point. It's why we don't think the lows are in for Bitcoin. It's certainly interesting. So again, this is a large part of why the dollar had this kind of a move, is simply because of you know, there's a lot of euro in this, in the DXY. I think it's 40-something% euro, quite a bit of GBP. So obviously this would have benefited from it. Next little bit to get into is the Dow drops nearly 500 points to close at new lows for 2022 on rising recession fears. So the Dow doing this is significant. And again, this was not really a necessarily bad day for Bitcoin. Of course, it was a down day, but it wasn't horrific in the manner that we saw the other markets sell off, which makes me think, you know, it throws a spanner in the works from a trading point of view and trying to figure out where the price is going in the short term. Tech stocks just had their worst 2 weeks stretch since the start of the pandemic. So again, why was Bitcoin not having, or why has Bitcoin not had? It certainly hasn't had the worst 2 weeks. If we try and find a 2 week period here, I mean, that's over a 2 week period. I mean, it's not been great, but it's certainly not been anything. We've had far worse periods than what we've currently had. So it's kind of showing strength in some ways here, which is interesting. Britain's pound plunges, bonds sink after government announces tax cuts. So it had a lot to do with tax cuts. Of course, tax cuts are going to affect the GDP of a country. So, you know, this is a lot of the reason why. So not really sure, to be honest. Short term, long term, we're very fixed that, you know, we are going to see 15K, sub 15K. It's just how we get there. I'll let you guys make the decision on how you think it gets there. This was just a short and sweet Saturday update talking about some things taking place in the cryptocurrency market and elsewhere. It's going to be interesting. You know, we've got the futures opening tomorrow. Do they continue to bleed? Also, we've got Monday, which I think is going to be a very interesting day. I wouldn't be surprised if we start selling off on Sunday, leading into the week, as Bitcoin's had a bit of a lagging period, and this is probably going to be the proper flush down that we need to actually get through this sort of 1870 or 18,700 level, and then actually see that further downside. So be careful out there, guys. Remember, our bias is still that there's lower prices. Short term, it's a very hard call. Certainly looking just at today specifically. Not really high probability in terms of trying to trade this, so I'm probably going to sit this weekend out, maybe get back involved on Sunday. All I've got for you in this video, guys. If you've enjoyed the content, a like is always appreciated, so is a comment, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next YouTube video. Have a wonderful Saturday, guys.